bring that sweet heat.
Hands off, okay? Don't you know fucking touch me?
The movie opens with John Brickner being released on parole after serving 4 years of his 7-year sentence. His early release is due to his good behavior and the guilt he carries for taking a man's life. After his release, John moves to Seattle and takes a job as a construction worker. One night, at a bar, he notices a waitress being harassed by 2 men. He intervenes, forces one of them to apologize, and kicks them out. Impressed by John's strength, the bar owner offers him a job as a bouncer, which he accepts. John struggles at his construction job, dealing with an unfair boss. Meanwhile, another bar fight breaks out, and John efficiently breaks it up. After witnessing his strength, a man approaches John with an offer, but he declines. One day, while working at the construction site, he is confronted by Veronica, the widow of the man he killed. She informs him that she approved his parole, not because of his letters, but because she needs money for her 8-year-old daughter's heart transplant. She demands that John pay $250,000 for the surgery. Later, John counts his earnings and hides them in a vent. That night, the waitress tries to talk to him about his savings, but instead, John asks her how to contact the man who previously offered him a job. She takes him to Reno, who organizes underground fights. Reno offers John a chance to earn money through fighting, but John initially refuses. One day at work, the manager fires John despite his hard work and dedication. Suddenly, the principal suffers a heart attack, and John steps in to save him until the paramedics arrive. That evening, John visits Veronica and informs her that he cannot afford her daughter's surgery. Upset, Veronica yells at him and shows him the letters he wrote to her while in prison. Their loud argument wakes her daughter, Sarah, but Veronica sends her back to bed. Moved by the situation, John promises Veronica that he will find a way to help. Later, John goes to a fighting ring and gets the chance to fight as a substitute for a participant who lost consciousness. Despite suffering a bite during the match, John manages to win. The next day, when John returns home, he finds Reno and Frankie waiting in his room. They urge him to participate in more fights since he is earning money and they desperately need it. Together, they meet Deacon, an investor, hoping he will give John a chance to fight in bigger battles. However, Deacon refuses, saying John cannot be trusted and lacks long-term reliability. John insists on speaking with Deacon privately and assures him that he will get the money. Meanwhile, a man named Nestor, to whom Reno owes money, arrives with his men and threatens Reno's life. John steps in and negotiates a deal. He will fight one of Nestor's men, and the loser will pay $10,000. The fight takes place in an arena surrounded by aggressive dogs trained to attack any fallen fighter. The battle is intense, but John emerges victorious, securing enough money for himself and Reno to meet Deacon. John visits Veronica at the hospital, where Sarah's condition has worsened. He reassures Veronica that he is working hard to get the money for Sarah's treatment. John continues participating in fights and wins multiple matches. One evening, he visits Frankie and asks about her stitching skills, wondering why she never pursued medical school. Meanwhile, Reno, while playing with friends, is ambushed by Val's men, who beat him and demand the $250,000 he owes. They threaten to harm Frankie if the debt isn't settled on time. Desperate, Reno arranges another fight for John, this time against another one of Nestor's men. The battle is brutal, and John takes several hard hits. Frankie, worried for his safety, tries to intervene, but John pushes through and, with Reno's encouragement, knocks out his opponent. During their victory celebration, Reno insists that they still have to wait before making their next move. Just then, John receives an urgent call from Veronica. He rushes to her apartment and finds a letter explaining that her donor request was denied. He then finds her attempting to take her own life in the bathroom and quickly takes her to the hospital. While waiting, Frankie asks about Veronica, and John opens up about her situation. He notices scars on Frankie's wrists, realizing that Reno once saved her from a suicide attempt. John meets with Veronica and urges her not to give up. She confesses that she wishes she could give her own heart to Sarah. John reassures her, promising that he will get the money. Reno sets up another fight for John, betting $250,000. Meanwhile, Val's men lock Reno in a bathroom, demanding the money after the match. Frankie, realizing something is wrong, becomes upset with Reno for keeping her in the dark. John wins the fight, but Nestor demands that it be a fight to the death. John refuses, ultimately losing the match. Frankie rushes to comfort him while Reno is severely beaten by Val's men. On their way back, John discovers that Reno is deeply indebted to Val. One day, while John is eating, he notices a car that has been tailing him. He gets inside and is taken to an older man who tells him he owes John a favor for saving his brother-in-law's life at a construction site. John explains that he needs money for Sarah's heart transplant. The man turns out to be Val, the very person Reno is indebted to. Val offers John two choices: either pay off Reno's debt or receive financial help for Sarah's surgery. John chooses to help Reno. Later, John takes Veronica home, and she shares her past, calling Sarah her greatest achievement. John reveals that he never intended to kill her husband, it was an act of self-defense. John then visits Deacon, but Deacon refuses to help him. With no other choice, John packs his belongings and prepares to leave. Before he can go, Reno arrives to thank him for settling his debts. Frankie also shares how Reno once paid off her debts, saving her life. Soon, John is called for another fight. As the match begins, an unknown person shoves him, sparking an intense and chaotic battle. This proves to be John's toughest fight yet. At one point, he falls to the ground, seemingly lifeless. However, he is covered in a mysterious substance and suddenly stands up, determined to continue. In the end, John triumphs. Veronica finally finds a donor for Sarah, saving her daughter's life.